Greetings, I'm the Political Ferret. Let's talk about the political compass once more, and this time about its strengths. So to be true, my first video about the political compass was, from my point of view, just a minor topic, but it looks like it's more important to you guys than I thought. And I pointed out that most people just don't understand the political compass, and I still stand with that, but you're absolutely right, it's better to educate than to rant about it. So let's go it on. So the political compass is a tool. And this tool uses the left and right wing system and improves by that by adding an additional axis. And as I said before, this makes it in one step way more complicated. And the problem is, as we know, people who don't understand stuff think that they understand it pretty well. And so we have quite a lot of interpretations out there. And some of them are actually quite good, but complicated. And others are just not. So okay, first we have to learn how to read diagrams, and please stay, it's not so hard and not so boring as your teachers in maths class made you feel. But we have to go over that. So let's stay one-dimensional for the moment. So you draw a line, and you could put on this line whatever you want, but let's start for the moment with economy. The two extremes in these cases are, first, the economy is in the hand of the state. The state owns everything and the people per se nothing. On the other extreme, there is this idea that the state should own absolutely nothing and everything should be in the hand of the people. And by the way, let's forget about the classical left and right pattern for this moment. This makes it easier to understand. So you can say now, well, I want to be here. But to be true, it's okay for me to live in a nation that is somewhere here. And the red dot is what you want to achieve, your ideal. The green area shows your tolerance. It's an area you could live with. Now let's take another line, and we call it social line. Again, we have two extremes. On the one hand, there is this idea that we are all organized in groups and collectives, and that a single individual has actually no rights, and that we are all competing groups. On the other hand, we say no, groups have no right, because we are all individuals. There are no groups, and if there are groups, they don't have rights for their own. So in this case, let's say we want to be here, and we have a tolerance of about that. So we could go on, but let's stick with these two. Now we do something, we put them together. So this might look like in your maths class, and it kind of is. So let's find out what we can do with that. First of all, let's find out where the extremes are. So these are the borders. Nothing can be outside. The square is what we're talking about. So let's add, just for information, center. So the center is just for orientation. The middle is, of course, the most balanced situation between the extremes. It's 50-50-50 if you want. So now we can figure out where we're standing. And here we are, on the two-dimensional plane. So we see on one look that the point is nearer to the individual edge, and economy-wise it's quite centered. Now finally, let's add the tolerance. So here we are, and this is what we know and love. If you take the test in the internet, you get normally something like this red dot, and the system tells you where you are. But I think it's a green area that is really interesting. You see, we all have an ideal, and for most of us this ideal is not in the extremes. But we have intolerance for existing outside of the optimum or the ideal, because we kinda have to all the time. But there are limits to that, what we want to tolerate. Extremists, who are basically on the edges, like for example this one, they have a goal and very, very little tolerance for more or less everything. This person will fight to reach his goal. And as we see in this very case, there is no overlap. Those two can't find common ground, and that's a problem to a certain degree, because the ideal of one could be hell for another. Some of us, or I would say most of us, have quite large tolerance zones. I would say it correlates a little bit with age. I mean, the young don't want compromises, aren't they? They want their ideal, and they have this feeling that their ideal is the ideal for everyone. And if you grow older, these zones expand a bit. And have you seen it? Yes, it was on purpose. I flipped the y-axis. The classical compass has authoritarian up and individual down. And here we are entering the real strengths of the political compass. It's flexible to a certain degree, and you have to use a bit more of your brain. You say, if you have a right-left type of system, it's very, very easy to assign good and bad to the extremes and basically ignore the middle. But with a two-dimensional system, this becomes harder. I switch the axis for those of you who know the system a bit too well. Always check the axis. Don't be too comfortable to make your point you think you are always on the same position. Always check the axis. It's like a squared plus b squared is c squared. You have to understand what A, B and C stands for to get the right result. So, we're talking about persons. Now let's talk about parties and movements. Those things have a position, and the position is also more or less a point. They also have a tolerance in which the point normally will move around based on who is in charge within the group or the party. And this is normal. But now there is something else. This movement, especially if it is a party, wants to reach into the enemy territory to get more, normally, voters or support in some way. So they say things and promise things they just don't mean. This area increases dramatically in times of votes and voting, especially in old democracies. And this has something to do with Hodling's law, which we will cover in a future episode. Each party is for everybody, each party says. And quite a lot of people will believe that and vote for them, even if they're absolute on the other side. This is the part about the lying politicians. You see, if peoples would be honest about where they are standing and what they are standing for, it would be quite easy to pick whom you want to vote for. But it is not. In a young democracy, the parties, and I'm not talking about the two-party system because that's not a working democracy, the parties differ. But still, there is this notion in the populace that democracy is the rule of the people, not a system where one set of people rule over another. In a younger democracy, and that means about 2 generations after a change, it's more about how can we all live in peace together and avoid killing each other and such stupid things as war. But after some time of peace, when the system gets older, it changes. Parties become for a bunch of people some kind of sport club. There is a big match every, say, 4 years, and one side wins, and the other side loses. Celebrations on the one side, trash cans on the other side, sounds like soccer hooligans, yeah. And there's a reason for that. So, what else can we do with this system? Well, the default system shows the two most important issues. Are we a bunch of individuals, or are we competing collectives fighting for supremacy? Do we need a state, or do we not? And that's the political compass. And with these little questions, you can get a lot of results. And every variation is basically okay. And don't let you reduce yourself to a point on this pattern by some internet tests. There is an area you could live your life. And perhaps this area is bigger than you think. And perhaps you find out that about, let's say, 2/3 of people share this area. So let's find common ground. Let's find compromises between us. Find out how 2/3 of us could live together, and we just have to ignore the radicals on each side with fetishes for extremes. So I hope I could help some of you to understand the political compass. If you think I had something absolutely wrong, feel free to comment, consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful day.